This week on the Wake and Bake podcast.
I asked Aaron as I was leaving the office, what are the odds that a year from now I'm going to be like, oh, why did I record that podcast about cannabis and breakups so close to an actual breakup? And she's like, probably about 99%. And I was like, okay, well, I'm doing it anyway. Wish me luck.
Going into this one, eyes wide open, folks.
This is my nerdy thirst trap. Like, did you see how hot I looked?
I'm available.
Play Lizzo and drink a bottle of tequila or whatever. That's what dealing with a heartbreak is.
Divorce is hard enough, but living with your ex-partner is also extremely challenging.
She's like, my mom's pretty much a breakup expert. And I was horrified.
Again, for me, it's about staying true to who I am, and cannabis really helps bring me home.
This is the first breakups that I've been through where it was just cannabis, where it was just my new boyfriend, the gummies.
I'm thinking about the fact that cannabis is actually helping you to process your emotions and process your thoughts and let go of things and take some responsibility.
Thirst trap over.
This episode of the Wake and Bake podcast is brought to you by Wake and Bake Hemp Co. Look, I know how overwhelming it can be to choose a CBD or hemp product that works because I've been there. Now, with hundreds of new CBD products hitting the market every day, it's even more overwhelming. At Wake and Bake Hemp Co., we did the research for you so you can skip the confusion and enjoy more calm, less tension, and better sleep. Visit wakeandbakehemp.co and check out our best sellers like our hemp-derived THC gummies, our CBD massage oil that doubles as a CBD lube, and Wake and Bark, our pet formula. We only source organic and natural ingredients, and every batch is lab tested. You can check the results of the lab tests by using the QR code right on the back of the label. And because you're a podcast listener, you can use the code Wake and Bake for 10% off your entire order. Visit wakeandbakehemp.co to learn more and let us know if you have any questions. We're here to help.
Welcome back to another episode of the Wake and Bake podcast. On this episode, we're veering kind of far out of the sciencey part of cannabis and much more into the emotional and personal side of cannabis. In fact, today, co-host Corinne, Tobias, and I are going to be talking about how we have personally used cannabis to help us deal with breakups and heartbreak. Corinne and I are both certified cannabis coaches and educators, and we spend a lot of our time talking about how cannabis can be used for things like sleep or pain or anxiety. And we don't often give this magical plant the light that she deserves for helping us get through some of the more emotional and raw parts of our life. I really hope that you enjoy this episode, and I can't wait to hear your feedback.
So you and I have been talking a lot about this particular subject because it's very fresh in both of our lives. And I think one of the things that is really interesting about us talking about how cannabis has impacted our breakups and our processing through what happens after a relationship is that it's a lot less nerdy and science-y than we usually are when we talk about cannabis. We're like ligands and all these things. And then, to be able to zoom out and say, oh, this is how it's actually impacted our lives. I'm really interested to have this conversation because of that.
It's funny because when we do our outlines for these podcasts, I always try to incorporate the science, and my part on science on this is like so short because it's true. This is way more about how it affects you, like as a human and a soul and a person, rather than like, how is this affecting your endocannabinoid system?
Well, yeah, but I believe that breakups probably do impact your endocannabinoid system, but that's not where we're going to go today. Like, I really want to talk about the experience of cannabis because healing in cannabis can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I found cannabis to be incredibly healing throughout this process of dealing with relationship transitions. So, Andrea, I would love to hear how cannabis has impacted your experience in relationship to breakups, but specifically with divorce.
It's funny for me because I have never been through a breakup on cannabis before. This is my first one. My husband and I decided to call it quits about a year ago, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, we had to live together apart. We had to live together in the same house, but separated for 9 months. And, divorce is hard enough, but living with your ex-partner is also extremely challenging. And I was extremely grateful for weed over this past year. I don't think I could have got through this with the same sort of integrity and trueness to myself if it hadn't have been for this plant. And when we were talking about it, it did really come down to 3 or 4 salient points about how cannabis helped with my breakup.
Let's hear it.
So I smoke joints. I know that smoking joints is not the healthiest way to consume. I am constantly trying to quit smoking joints, but I have to say that there is something in the whole ritual of taking a break from your day, taking a break from your thoughts, and going in, grinding the plant material and rolling it into a joint, and then sitting with the smoke and watching it. It's a whole sensory experience. So I think the first thing for me was just being able to disconnect from whatever it was I was doing, divorce paperwork or whatever, and being able to have just a little bit of break with cannabis was helpful, just the act itself. And then that joint also provided me with a mood boost. I use cannabis primarily for depression, and depression loomed pretty close throughout this past year. So being able to have the THC would provide me a mood boost. And that was really important because we have 2 kids. And so not only was I trying to manage my own emotions and my own thought processes, but I had to be there, even like maybe more emotionally available for my kids. And I have found since the beginning of me smoking cannabis that it helps me be very connected and close with my children. It's been a really great boon to our relationship. So I'm really grateful for their sakes that I was able to have cannabis. But for me, probably the most important thing was that when I smoke weed, my compassion meter gets turned all the way up. So there would be oftentimes when I was like in a really bad space about my ex-husband, thinking all these awful things, and I would go and smoke some weed, and then I would be able to see things maybe from his lens, or have some compassion for the fact that he was also going through a breakup and his life was being exploded. All in all, it just helped me get through this relationship breakdown in a much better place. I literally can't imagine it without weed. I don't know what I would have done without weed. And as I say that, I'm like, oh my God, is this a crutch? And then I think, I don't freaking care if it's a crutch. If I needed a crutch to be able to get through this past year and be a good parent and get out of this marriage, and still have a decent relationship with my ex-husband, if I needed a crutch to do all of that, I'm happy to have a crutch.
If that was a crutch for you, it was like a crutch on steroids. I don't even know how to describe it, because I've watched you throughout this process, and I've watched you handle things with such grace and such dignity, and check yourself when you're, starting to get angry about something and it's starting to make you feel reactive. And I've watched you step back and just operate differently. And so if it's a crutch, everyone needs this crutch, you guys. When you go out through breakups, it's okay. Because what else do you usually have? Booze, distraction, food, workaholism, hopping right back into the dating scene. So I think that in terms of how people deal with breakups in general, it's pretty good.
The one thing I have noticed recently, though, is since our podcast with Colette, I've been doing more cannabis meditation. And I feel like now I'm understanding how cannabis can start to help to prepare me as I think about going back out into the dating world. I'm able to process even some of that stuff with the help of cannabis moving forward. Again, for me, it's about staying true to who I am, and cannabis really helps bring me home. So hopefully, when I'm ready, I can walk out into the dating world having a good, strong sense of self. Thanks again to the plant.
I'm like now picturing you meditating and envisioning your like hot new boyfriend. Like, is that what's going on?
100%.
Tall, dark, and handsome. You're supposed to be meditating, Andrea.
Tell us about you, because you have experience with breakups with and without cannabis. And now you even have experience of breaking up with your new hemp derived THC gummies. So how does cannabis affect you and your love life and heartache?
I thought you were saying that I was breaking up with my gummies, and I was like, never. They're literally like right there. No, I will never break up with the gummies. They're the partner I meditate about.
Wait, are they tall, dark, and hemp flavored?
They're This is going off the rails.
Totally. The reason that you and I have been talking about this is because you're, recently through a breakup. So how has cannabis helped you in this process?
Yeah, it's been very, very recent, and it's not just this one, right? Since 2019, when my husband passed, I've been dating, and so far, I'm batting 0 out of 100. We've had a 100% failure rate on that. So I've been through some breakups, and I've been through breakups as a single mom. My daughter has gone through this process a few times, and one day we were in the woods, we were foraging for mushrooms with a friend of ours, and she's like, my mom's pretty much a breakup expert. And I was like horrified. I was like, oh gosh, okay. And she's like, she's had two. And I was like, girl, if you only knew. If you only knew what was going on. So it's been a really interesting process. And I will say, through most of that time, I would use alcohol or working harder or food or those kinds of things along with cannabis. Cannabis has been part of my toolkit, but I would definitely lean hard on those things. I would go to our local watering hole. I would start dating again, those kinds of things to process with it. And this is the first breakup that I've been through where it was just cannabis, where it was just my new boyfriend, the gummies, like where I wasn't using those things. And it's been one of the most incredible experiences in my life. And again, it is very, very recent, but I also have some takeaway points that were, when we started talking about doing this podcast, really came up for me.
Tell us about your takeaways.
Yeah, so the first one is like you, the piece that I think has been most impactful is that compassion piece, that perspective shift where you're like, oh, this is sad for me. Oh, this hurts me. I'm like heartbroken. And the future that I was envisioning is falling apart. When I've used cannabis, when I'm feeling that way, within 10 to 30 minutes, I'm like, oh, this is really, really hard for that other person as well. So in this circumstance, the person that I was dating, they were going through a divorce and their former partner was having a really rough time mentally. And it would have been easy for me to go, Ellie's crazy. She's threatening, she's like being manipulative and those kinds of things and having those judgments. But taking a step back, it was really easy to say, like, well, this woman's life is completely shifting. And his life was too. And so they were navigating that. So while I wanted to be angry, instead, I was able to take a step back, and my experiences with cannabis and with psilocybin, they really allowed me to have compassion for what they were going through, and how they were handling things a lot more, I think a lot more deeply.
I wonder if it's the mushrooms then for you, because you were able to not only have compassion for your ex-partner, but also your ex-partner's ex. Like that's compassion to the nth degree.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, now that I'm Colorado sober, I don't know if I've told you about this phrase that I've coined. Colorado sober is no booze, but with weed and psilocybin and psychedelics. Just spread it around. Colorado sober. Yeah, I mean, I can't separate because I use both of those plant medicines, not interchangeably, but for different reasons. And I do think that both of them have had an impact on this in this breakup for sure. But again, I'm still processing this one. Like that's why we're having this conversation, is because we've been having these conversations and I'm still moving through like what this all means.
Can you think back to a previous breakup where you were using maybe cannabis and alcohol, and how much different just ditching the alcohol and staying with plant medicine has made a difference for you?
Yeah, I can say certainly that in the past when I've used alcohol in addition to cannabis, or just, I would say that it's actually kind of one of the main things that I would use when I was going through a breakup. It was like an excuse almost to overindulge. I was like, I'm sad, this sucks. And culturally, we're like, yeah, go party with your friends and play Lizzo and drink a bottle of tequila or whatever. That's what dealing with a heartbreak is. And sometimes when it's so raw and so fresh, that can be really helpful, in the immediate term. But in the long term, it obviously doesn't pay off. Because one of the things with alcohol is that it has repercussions that are really painful and that cause more depression, more anxiety. So you're talking about maybe not feeling so much one night, or being able to turn that part of your brain off and just have fun. And then the next day feeling like way worse than you would otherwise. So you can easily get into an up and down kind of cycle with that, especially in going through a breakup, that will not allow you to step back, look at that relationship through clear eyes, look at yourself through some clear eyes, like really, identify what your lessons have been, and then integrate that, incorporate that into your life and act differently so that you can, in the next relationship, after you've meditated your dream man into existence, you can show up for that person, the way that you wish you would have maybe in this past relationship.
When you're talking about this, I'm thinking about the fact that cannabis is actually helping you to process your emotions and process your thoughts and let go of things and take some responsibility. Whereas with alcohol, it seems like you're just kind of like putting your breakup on hold for a night. And then the next morning you have a hangover, plus you have a breakup, plus you've done none of like the quote unquote work.
Yeah,
Is
and I
that
feel like
fair?
some people are like me that you're like, "Oh, I have a hangover. Now I'm gonna do that because I don't wanna feel this experience." Like, I'm gonna hair the dog it, and then it just kind of keeps getting pushed back. But also, I think there's something so valuable in this fresh period, like when it's just happened and you're kinda shook. If you instead spend the next few days, like, going out with your friends or hopping back on Tinder just to, like, see what's going on out there or whatever, you miss that opportunity. You miss that opportunity to really, like, in that immediate time, look back and say, "Oh, okay, this is what's happening," and journal about that or write about it or whatever your process ends up being. But again, cannabis can help show you what that process is. Like, this was a completely free form breakup. I had no, like, I didn't have a book to read afterwards. Like, sometimes I get into, like, courses. I'm like, "I'm just gonna do a course on this," and I looked at one. I did. I'm not gonna lie. I looked at that Create the Love breakup course. I was like, "I'm just gonna nerd my way through this whole thing." And instead, I would take a dummy and, I would write about things. I wrote songs about things. I just sat and felt what I was feeling, which was huge. And I don't know if I would have done that otherwise, especially if I was drinking. I wasn't going to sit and feel how I was feeling because I feel great. I feel the best. And it also helped with impulse control. That idea of wanting to text someone that you have a recent split with. It's so easy when you start drinking to be like,
Yeah.
"I want this person back," and then send that text or make that call. It's cliche at this point how easy that is.
The other thing that I was thinking about is that the compassion giving nature of cannabis also allows me to treat myself with some compassion when I'm going through the processing, like when I'm like deciding to like sit with my feelings. If I have cannabis in my system, it allows me to like give myself a hug and forgive myself for past mistakes, which is something that's really not easy for me. But when I'm using cannabis intentionally to try to help with this, I'm able to do that. And so it allows me, I think, to get through these tough feelings easier. I hope I'm not like skirting through the feelings, like I hope that cannabis isn't allowing me to like just float across the top of them, but I don't feel like that. I really do feel like I'm able to just look at them or feel them or be with them in a different way when I have cannabis in me.
Yeah, I've kind of had the flip side of that. I've taken some really hard looks this time around, without using alcohol and numbing out and kind of disassociating. When I use cannabis, it's like, "Oh, okay, it's time to take some responsibility for what was happening." Because it'd be really easy for me to go, "Oh, this is their thing. This is what they're going through." And when I really looked at it, there were a lot of things, my own insecurities and pressure that I was putting on the relationship unnecessarily, rushing into things without fully knowing a person and where they're coming from. Those kinds of things were really, really easy to see and so important because when I saw them there in this relationship, I got to see where I was doing them in business, where I was doing them in parenting, where I was doing them everywhere else. Like, it's almost annoying now where I'm like, "Oh, okay, there's that thing," because it just became so clear. And again, that wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have utilized cannabis throughout this process. I don't think I would have seen it so clearly or so quickly. I wish I would have done things differently, a whole laundry list of things that looking back, I wish I could have done differently. But without being like, that's because you're a shit human. You know what I mean? It's like I'm learning, and yeah, I'm 37 and I'm solo, which it just means I'm learning a lot. I'm learning more than everybody else, really, is what that means.
So you actually are nerding out. You're taking a class in your own life. We know all the answers, so just reach out because we've got it figured.
No, but I think we don't have it figured out, obviously. And I think that's what's interesting about this conversation right now. I'm still in this season. I haven't figured it out just yet, but I can tell you right now, without a doubt, that cannabis has been super impactful. And I don't want to forget that, and I think and I want to share that because it has been so impactful. And I watch people struggle with this. Like, how many people struggle with moving through a divorce in a way that feels healthy, where they end up on the other side and they're like, okay, like they're taking things step by step and they've developed a relationship with themselves and all of those things in the amount of time that you've done that. Or, how many people are really looking at the end of their relationship through this lens of like, I can be compassionate about the other people, like truly, genuinely. That's not just lip service. Like, I truly, genuinely feel that way. And also be able to take responsibility so you don't like fuck it up again. I don't know. Maybe it's just because we're old and we're doing mushrooms now, and like, now we've got it all figured out. But I do think that there's a huge impact from the cannabis, and I really wanted to have this conversation because I want to hear from everybody who's listening right now if they've had this experience. I want to know if this is something that you as a listener have gone through, and I want to know how cannabis has helped you.
Me too. Tell us all about it wherever you're listening to this or watching it, or shoot us an email at support@wakeandbake.co and tell us about how you've used cannabis for breakups and heartbreak. I can't wait to hear what people have to say, actually. I'm really curious about this one. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. And again, thank you to everybody who has been reaching out with all your kind words. We love hearing from you. We love hearing about your wacky ideas for Corinne's new Wake and Bake gummies. And we are going to be very excited to hear what you have to say about how this magical, beautiful plant has helped you or not get through a breakup and heartbreak. We'll see you on the next one.